One. My name is Amos Joseph, and I'm joined today by my friend Brook Potter, who is in the UK, and this is the 10K Rum Podcast. How's it going, Brook?
It's going well, Amos. Pretty much still enjoying the British summer out here. Still having technical issues with my piece of shit laptop. And just enjoying the fact that the office doesn't have anybody cleaning it today. So we could actually do the show on a Thursday now. So that's pretty cool.
Thursdays are not hump day, though, as the episode.
I know. I don't know if we're going to keep that title working with us, but yeah, definitely. What is Thursday then? If it's not hump day, is it like landing day? Is it like coming in for approach day? What is it?
It's like just before the weekend. Like,
I know.
Weekend anticipation.
I mean, Thursdays have always been my favorite day of the week. I don't know why, because I always considered Friday kind of part of the weekend, even if it wasn't. But yeah, it's just I know hump day. Yeah, it's the middle of the week. I just wouldn't. I don't know if there's somebody out there who could tell us what a Thursday is.
I mean, it's Thursday. Historically.
Yes. The Norse people would be very pleased.
Yep. But yeah. So do we want to talk about what was planned for today, at least?
Yeah, I guess we could mention that, and we can go from there.
I mean, we've always been wanting to kind of do 2 shows a week for a bit now. We've done our Sundays forever, and then we wanted to kind of put in Thursdays. We had scheduled on to get Robert Frank today, but he wasn't feeling the best, so not that we're not going to have him anymore, but we're definitely going to try to get him back probably next week, right?
Yes. Tentatively, tentatively
next week. Yeah.
He is busy. He might have to fly out. Dan Bilzerian might call him on the fly, so we'll just have to take second place to Dan Bilzerian, which I don't mind.
I mean, I think I talked to some people about Rob coming on the show, and people were like, "Wait, he's just coming on? Like, he's not like charging you guys or trying to do something?" It's like, no, he's just. I mean, he's plugged us like almost a dozen times.
Easy. Yeah.
And then now he's coming on, and it's just like, oh, okay.
I mean, he's just such a cool guy, just down to earth, regular. And as I keep saying, he's been hailed out recently by Joe Rogan on his podcast. And of course, everybody made a very, very big hoopla about that. More than once, actually. I think 2 podcasts he was mentioned, and they played a clip of his and stuff like that. And he got all excited about that. And I said that to him in the email, like, every time he mentions us on the Glorious House Against podcast, we feel very much how he feels being hailed out by Joe Rogan. So yeah. I mean, it's very generous of him. I know he's very busy, so we're looking forward to having him on.
Oh yeah. Not that he's never going to come on. It's just tentatively next week. We'll see what happens, but it's happening. It's going to happen. That is
definitely.
But we weren't really sure what we were going to talk about. I mean, I think, what were kind of some of the things you think we would have talked about with Rob if he'd come on today?
I mean, we would have done a lot of his past. We would have asked about, inspiring him to get into the gym and stuff like that. I mean, I know a lot of these answers already, but I think, just like the development of the character and all of these different types of things. Also, questions about how he met his wife and, the whole settling down thing. And yeah, there are a lot of questions we could have gotten into. I mean, there's a lot of action going on in the US right now with these mass shootings, because there was another one on that same day, right? We touched on it, but the developments about one of them kind of being a leftist. That's
one of them is a leftist, one of them is a right winger, and it's funny. And I don't subscribe to these types of conspiracy theories, but they definitely pose interesting questions.
Yes.
Granted, the U.S. is notorious for mass shootings. I'll say that, but at the same time, it's funny how these mass shootings all of a sudden kind of take the news cycle right as like you're kind of digging into another story, usually regarding a scandal, something a politician is doing, like something that's pretty important too.
Like Epstein's pedophile ring, for
Yeah,
instance, is
yeah.
a thing.
It's like the news. The news kind of gets into that, and
Mm,
then boom, two shootings happen. And it's like, wait, what? Funny thing. So the El Paso shooting, you know where it was, right?
the El Paso, it was a Walmart, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
Now all
Walmart.
Walmarts have security guards.
Good on them. Like
It,
armed security.
I don't know about armed. I haven't looked closely enough.
Okay, maybe in Texas it might be armed
So with my
security.
job, I do tend to go to Walmarts and stuff, and just part of what I do. I won't go any further. Anyways, saw the basically walking in. I've seen either they had like specifically the ones in the cities, like the Twin Cities area up here. There's I think I've seen like squad cars at some of the city ones. There's always at least
Mm,
one squad car there. One of them even had like what looked like kind of like those mobile command centers that police have. They basically have like this trailer thing that they like set up, and it's got like lights on it, and it's got like a little radio station. And I'm like, geez,
cool. They're
But I
taking it
mean,
very seriously.
yeah, I mean, I even went to the Walmart that I typically go to, which is, as far as I know, has never had any problems. It's actually a suburb of the cities, and there was a guard there at like 11 o'clock at night.
Cool. Cool.
I'm like, what's going on here?
I mean, it's kind of funny that they didn't have guards before. I'm kind of surprised by that.
Um, I can see like, so I used to work at McDonald's years back, and I know certain McDonald's in like large cities or like basically some of the worst areas of the Minneapolis St. Paul area,
Yeah.
they would have a guard, but only at night.
Right.
If they're like a 24-hour, where their lobby is 24 hours as well. That I could see, but like a Walmart in Minnesota, maybe at like a handful, but not like where I was, the one I usually go to.
Right.
Yeah, Brian here saying even Apple stores have security guards. I mean, the ones I go to, I've never seen security guards there. I know, I mean, but then again, most Apple stores are inside malls that have security anyways.
Mm, mm. I mean, they do have like the store detectors for the stealing of the phones. I know that's very
Yeah, I mean,
common.
that's all there. But I mean,
Yeah.
to have like just like a dedicated guard
Yeah.
for like the Walmart that I went to. Like if I
Mhm.
went to like there's one that's half an hour away from me, another one that's like 20 minutes away from me. The one that's half an hour away from me is a little closer to the city, but it's like it's not a crime, not a high crime kind of area. But
Right.
but the big part is, probably more of a PR move
Mm.
is just, restore
I,
that confidence in their customers is just put a guard in there.
I mean, rent-a-cops are basically PR. Not many of these people are trained. Sometimes it's senior citizens. Sometimes they're very overweight. Whatever, what have you. And yeah, for the most part, like we said in the last podcast, there's not really much you can do to prevent, somebody who just cracks and decides to go and do something like this. Um, but having security around and so forth, at least the perception of it helps, ease the public. So yeah, good on them. I hope that's something that's spread out nationwide.
They're still
And
selling guns though.
well, I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, who's the Minnesota sporting goods company that stopped selling guns and they really took a hit to their bottom line? It was, I can't remember which one it was. It was a hunting and like outdoor company.
Dick's Sporting Goods.
Dick's Sporting Goods, that must be it. And yeah, their public filings, they've taken like a 20 to 40% hit on revenues by, going get woke, go broke kind of scenario, So
Speaking of get woke, go broke, and companies taking a hit, you heard about Gillette taking like an $8 billion hit because of that woke commercial about men?
yes, that's not exactly what happened because I read the report and people are spinning it that way.
What
Um,
exactly happened?
what exactly? Well, it's not an actual tangible loss. It's a write down. Basically, they're saying that the Gillette brand is not as valuable as it used to be, as well as equipment depreciation and other things going on. So it's not a tangible loss. It's just like a paper loss that they're kind of
Right.
writing down.
Right.
And yes, they are blaming it on the fact that millennials and hipsters, they're not shaving as much. Obviously, having a beard is kind of part of the uniform these days. And as a result of that, they've written down the European value of Gillette. But yeah, as I say, people are spinning it that way, and I understand why they're spinning it that way. But that's not actually what's going on. Although they are losing revenue, they are shrinking by quite a bit. I think I can't remember how much, but they're not actually taking like a tangible loss. But somebody who is taking a tangible loss, and it's kind of funny in that respect. Disney is taking a loss on their Star Wars exhibit that opened in Florida. Did you hear about this?
No, what?
Bob Iger, CEO of Disney. Well, Disney bought Lucasfilms for $4 billion US. And I believe this is the revenge of the fans, right? So they built this huge Star Wars exhibit. They expected it to be so popular, they actually put like a reservation system in place because they thought they were just going to have these queues and queues of Star Wars fans and other such things. But thanks pretty much squarely at the feet of The Last Jedi, it was underattended. Like all of those systems that they put in place to handle the crowds and stuff like that was not needed. And there seems to be little to no interest for people to actually come into this new exhibit. So yeah. Thank you, Ryan Stone, for fucking over an entire franchise worth billions.
Ryan Stone?
I think, well, wasn't Ryan Stone the director of The Last Jedi? I believe he was.
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of the other Ryan Stone.
Which Ryan Stone is that?
One of the guys in the red pill.
Oh no. This is. Oh.
I'm sitting here like, what?
No, this is the director Ryan Stone, who basically shit all over, everything that made Star Wars great, and Luke being the perpetual optimist that even his father, who's on the dark side, there's still good in you, and you basically turned him into a cynical prick, shitting all over the legacy of the franchise, and you never put the three people that everybody wanted to see back together, which was, Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Luke. And well, Chewie is of course. So they just completely fucked it up, and I understand that the toy sales as well. Nobody is buying, Ren, Poe, what the fuck her name is. I can't remember. The Asian diversity hire. All of these useless characters that nobody cares about. They're basically ending up in the discount bin at what's left of the Toys R Us and other places. So good on you, Disney. Good on you. Yeah. Good job. Are
you saying the black character Poe is at the back of the shelf?
Yeah. But so is what's the Mary Sue character? Ren, the woman, the chick.
Oh, Rey,
right, whatever the fuck her name is.
Yeah, it's like she's Rey, and then you have Kylo Ren.
Yeah,
and then
Kylo Ren. Yeah,
and you have Poe. Like, why does everyone have these like one syllable names?
It must be a Chinese thing. They're probably appealing to the Chinese market.
You had Leia, you had Luke, but you had Han Solo. That it was like little more variety.
Akbar.
Yeah, you had all these names, and then it's just Poe, Ren, Kylo Ren, Rey,
Ren. Yeah, and
BB-8. Like BB-8 was probably the only like toy worthy character.
Yeah. The droids have always been cool. You can't really fuck up the droids, except in Solo, apparently, where whatever the droid is having sex with Lando Calrissian.
Oh god, I haven't seen that. I haven't. Apparently, there's it's already on Netflix, which is a good and a bad thing, I guess.
Yeah.
If it's available to be streamed on Netflix, I'd say it's definitely saying that they're wanting some revenue from it. Like,
I never saw it. Did you see it? I didn't actually go and watch So
It's on Netflix, and I could like
I
watch it
know.
like right now, but I just don't want to.
Yeah, I mean,
I have no real interest.
we had a young Solo story, and it was called Star Wars, right? It's like this is the prequel nobody wanted, right? So
What's his name? Patton Oswalt. You know, looking past his more SJW leaning nowadays. He's a comedian,
right,
and he was also a really big nerd on like Star Wars and stuff. And he made this really good bit talking about when he first was shitting on like the prequels, the first prequels.
yeah.
And then he does this like George Lucas impression where he's just like, well, you remember Luke, and you remember Han Solo and all this. Well, this is them as a kid, or they're or no, Darth Vader. Well, here's him as a kid,
Yeah.
and he's like, well, who cares? He's like, imagine like another. He pitches it any other way. Well, you like chocolate ice cream? You like vanilla ice cream? Yeah, I like those things. Well, here's some rock salt and some cream
And some eyes.
and some ice. What? Why? Well, I just thought pretty cool. It's like, no, I want ice cream. Like, I like the ice cream. I don't
Yeah,
care about where it
I
came
don't
from.
exactly. Yeah, the Han Solo thing. I mean, I've never been a huge Star Wars fan. Um, but yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care, and I probably will not go to see the next one.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was so bad. The Last Jedi. If it was like a standalone sci-fi, I said, okay, well, maybe that could work. But because it's part of the lore and it just shit all over everything, I didn't, I couldn't really, I couldn't watch anymore. So I don't know what they're gonna do. Episode 9 or whatever comes out later this year, if I'm not wrong, right? November.
When what comes out?
The next one, the Rise of Skywalker or something. I don't fucking know what it's called. I don't give a shit.
I think it's Rise of Skywalker.
The
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker. Oh, for God's sake. Yeah, yeah. As one guy said, the only way that you can save this franchise is if you start the 9th movie with Rey opening her eyes from a dream, and the entire last movie just happened in her head, and they redo it from there. But yeah, that's not obviously going to happen. So they pretty much killed it. And it looks like they're going to do it to the Marvel universe too, by the way.
Oh boy. I'm curious. Okay, so without letting ourselves go down the whole movie trail again, we're
I mean,
talking about
it's
movies
in
again.
line. It's in line with the topic of the SJWs and
Yeah.
screwing up corporates.
Um, what have you heard about this take from that basically got started up again by the political by the politicians? The whole video games cause violence thing is making the rounds again.
Yeah, I heard who Tim Pool or somebody talking about this. I didn't actually see the press conference, so it was President Trump that actually made the statement about excessive video games, right?
Yeah, and then so the
What did he
memes,
say?
right? Oh, not. I mean, I don't know exactly. I didn't watch that part, but I do know just what it's the meme of like video games cause violence is making the rounds again,
Right.
and the memes now are better than ever when it's coming to that. Like, so you've seen like the flags, the Mola and Labe, the come and take it, like of a gun, and then there's like a star or
Yeah.
something. Well, now they're taking like an Xbox controller, and then it's just come and take it. Um,
I saw the
and
one
then
with let's just say the Führer play, like somebody superimposes picture onto somebody holding a controller.
oh yeah, yeah, Hitler, playing video games before the Holocaust or something like
Some
that.
shit like that. Yeah, that's very good idea.
And oh yeah, like someone took like old paintings of back in the day, like so old. If you guys know anything about like old punishment or old like ancient like torturing.
Torture.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Like people getting sawed in half down the crotch, just crazy shit like that. And it's like these two guys doing it, and he goes, you know, yeah, can't wait to go play video games after this. Like they're sawing a guy in half, and he goes, what's a video game? I don't know. Things are so peaceful now. Like the whole idea that basically violence is somehow derived from video games, it's like it's a joke. Like humans have always been violent. I just shared a Babylon Bee article, like, let's go back to the days before guns when everything was peaceful. Like it's guns and video games. Just no, that's not,
Exactly.
It's such a, or this is the even funnier one, what the media thinks your grandma is doing after she plays too many games of solitaire on a computer, and it's like a granny with an AK-47. Because video games cause violence, and it's like, when the internet is down at CNN and the reporters start pressing the space bar on Google Chrome, which is, if anyone knows, when Google Chrome goes offline, you use the space bar to play the little dinosaur game.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, it shows them sweating, like, oh no, I'm playing video games. Like, video games don't cause violence.
No.
Bad video games cause people to become maybe a little violent, but that's a whole nother thing.
I mean, I think
company comes out with a shit game.
Yeah,
bad.
I like the new Wolfenstein. I think that might send some people going, being a shitstorm. I mean, this idea of video games, because they did it with rap music. They did it with out here in the UK. We have what is it called, drill, and it's very violent. Kind of, it's not quite rap. It's kind of combination rap with a house beat. Very violent about killing gangsters and drilling holes in their head and all that kind of stuff. No, that kind of thing. It doesn't exactly. England doesn't have the same types of issues because of this popular music, for instance. People are find their reasons, and from what we understand, one of them had a manifesto, and he was very concerned about basically demographic replacement, like the Mexican invasion, as he put it. Okay, that's a legitimate thing, and I think generally for young men today, especially if you don't have good role models, good goals, maybe just some understanding about the world and direction, it's pretty bleak. Men are constantly being talked down to. Boys are constantly being treated like defective girls. Just for having a penis, you're a misogynist. And, a woman could throw an accusation at a man and destroy his entire life with no evidence. It's a pretty shit deal for young men. And society, for the large part, has moved on from helping young men and boys. And as a result, they're falling behind,
I had this conversation with someone last night about, because I was looking at, so if anyone who's on Facebook, follow the page, Misogyny. It's like this meme. They do a lot of memes kind of addressing some like red pill stuff, just men's issues and stuff like that. But they did a little bit of more of a heartfelt kind of post. They showed a picture of a guy, just some guy who took a selfie of himself crying in the car. And it says, this guy's Philip. He's 34 years old. And this picture was taken of him moments before he killed himself. So he's this like single dad raising 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got like, just tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And he was looking into some like, some sort of government program for credit debt relief or something.
Yeah.
And it didn't come through. I mean, the post was going in a direction of pushing for like the government stepping in and like helping people relieve people of like high amounts of like credit related debt. And I was like, I mean, that's a little different. But I mean, it was basically touching on the fact that like, because he's a man and he's raising 3 kids on his own, he can't talk about what's going on. He can't seek help, and if he does, it's not the same. Correct. He actually said, as part of his suicide note, was, my children will be better off that I'm gone. And I couldn't help but agree.
Yeah.
A single father killing himself, his kids are going to be just fine. I mean, granted,
not really, but
not really. But I mean, say what you want. The system of like how it deals with like orphan children and stuff like that. Yes, the best. But in terms of physical well-being,
I mean, I don't know enough about the situation to be able to say that, because I do think having a father is very, very
I'm saying,
important.
I'm
Yeah,
saying
but I
mental
understand
and
your point.
emotional well-being in terms of physical well-being, which is all
Yeah,
he,
the state will take
fine.
care of the kids, just like it takes care of single moms and stuff like that. Fathers don't have access to anything. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with that in that respect.
Now, looking beyond the whole, our criticism of like welfare and all that,
Yeah.
still, like, the society, I mean, it's a reflection of society that if you're a man and you're struggling, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, whatever way, that you basically just could use like some, whether you need some sort of social support system, family support system, even some families, within families themselves, you tend to see a certain list of like what is most important. Well, most important, women and children, then all these
Correct.
other things, then the men of the family,
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. It's yeah, it's present throughout society. If a woman pops out a kid, she's taken care of. If a single father passes away, kids are not the best, but definitely taken care of in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me. Whereas if a married father with like one, let's say he's got 3 kids with his wife and she dies, what does he
Hmm.
get? Well, if she has a job and stuff, maybe she has a life insurance policy. There's that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But outside of that, and it's sort of inherent protections that society and even government puts on like a single dad or
Yeah.
newly, a widower and stuff. Not much.
No, I agree. I agree. I mean, I think that's why male suicide, especially amongst young people, like 18 to like 35 or whatever the case might be, is skyrocketing in
And
the US.
and just to be clear, I'm not advocating like, need more welfare for men and this and that, because I don't I guess I personally don't go down the line of like the more political push to like, oh, like, I'm trying not to be like a male a meninist.
Well, no, I would actually go the man in this route and be like, look, if you are going to do welfare, it's got to be equal across the board. Everybody has to be entitled
In the
to the
practical
same.
sense,
Yeah.
yes.
If you're gonna have welfare, single mom, single dad, doesn't matter. You got to treat both sexes easily. Not that welfare is my first choice.
Right.
This the
We are
option that's on the table.
libertarians after all.
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
we would much rather. I mean, Brian in the chat actually raised a very good point about like the death of religion, and especially for young people. Um, the community of faith, and it doesn't always have to be religious. It could be something binding you together, such as like Alcoholics Anonymous or a lodge or whatever kind of fraternity you might be a part of. But at least in those kind of fraternities, you get a sense of belonging, and people kind of looking out for each other. And that,
right.
ironically, has been missing. We are more connected than ever. Technology. I mean, you and I are talking across the Atlantic, and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, humanity as a whole is less connected than ever. And that's it. Like, especially for men, we don't have these gangs of friends and others hold us accountable, a community of faith. All of these pillars that used to kind of hold up the crux of society are kind of decaying, and they're non-existent in a lot of ways. So
Yeah, you have you kind of have these extremes now where you're having some of the most alpha men come about, but you're also having you're having men that just can't even survive.
yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Brian brings up a good point here, because in the chat he says the solution is not politics. True, but within the context of the world we're in, which has a lot of politics, the first steps would be there is political change. Although it's, there is always a slippery slope of like sort of overinflating political power and stuff. But yeah, I mean, being a guy is, not to play, I'm a victim, but being a guy has its own set of problems that I think objectively people don't really see,
I would agree.
because whether or not, because I know there's that whole little branch of like men who are kind of doing the whole like, being in touch with their emotions and the whole like,
It's
kind of
okay to cry and
trying to redefine masculinity as like saying man up is like somehow like a bad thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, but trying to play like, oh, man up is like a detrimental thing because men are like, all this suicide. It's like, well, I think there's different things to that. Instead of like trying to twist masculinity in a more feminine direction to
Mhm.
allow to account for basically, sorry, but the soy boys, uh, you need to re-examine masculinity and see it for what it is and allow men to become more men, more of a man, rather than to sort of find like a shortcut out of it and
Yeah.
just, you know, um, instead of like trying to like the whole like the be in touch with your feelings, I see it as like a release valve that's not really solving the problem, instead of
Mm.
taking the pressure and applying it to actually help men.
Right.
um yeah, what is it, I remember when that first came out and I kind of was a bit sympathetic to the idea, like, oh, like, yeah, people tell me to man up and that doesn't help me. It's like, yeah, because masculinity is just stuck with the phrase. Like, no one really knows what manning up means. They'll say it, but no one really like looks at that. Like, men haven't had the space nor the real like resources to really look into what does manning up mean? What does being a man mean? What does raising a family mean? Where all these things matter? Like, I hear these things,
Mm.
but no one really tells me how.
That's interesting because I think there's actually a lot of answers to that because
Well, there are, but they're
yeah.
not readily available like
Well,
it
they
is
used to
for the
be
other. Yes. No,
when
no,
we
no.
had fathers.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is society, like the priorities that we have in society. A woman has, you know, battered women shelters, welfare,
Mhm.
feminism resources. I mean, not that it's all, just to look at maybe the more traditional side of feminism, the like,
Sure.
women that maybe want to be successful in things that maybe they haven't been able to. Just, but I mean, or children needing resources. Like a child has, so there's these two protected classes of women and children.
Mhm.
What do men have? Well, we got to go digging into like websites and forums that aren't so easily like put out there for us to find. You got to go to the quarantined red pill subreddit. You got to go to you got to find books that aren't always available in bookstores.
Mhm.
You could have
Mhm.
whole sections of bookstores on feminism,
Sure. Sure.
but you don't have like a men's resource per se. And if you do, it's usually some sort of like in between, like being insensitive to your feminine side as a man and some masculinity.
I agree with that to an extent. I mean, the man up thing. When I always understood it, and this is actually how not my father, but another father explained it to me, is as a man we have unlimited potential for both good and evil, and we also have great potential to feel extremes. We can feel the deepest sense of love and also some of the deepest pain.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of manning up was realizing that whatever you're going through right now, it's not killing you. You have the potential to overcome it. That's always how it's been described to me, and I tend to agree with that to a large extent. A lot of
Most
people,
men don't know that though.
I know, which is
Right.
crazy, right? No, most men don't look at it that way, which is it becomes like, shut up and just take it. When it really and truly a man up is when people would say that to me, it's like, yes, feel the pain. Yes, it hurts right now, but it's not killing you because you have the potential to survive this and overcome it.
Right. We talk about the male burden of performance.
Yes. Yes.
I think we'll just say, we'll just call it what it is, the purple pill approach of, being in touch with your more sensitive side and all this, that tends to sort of alleviate men of that, I think, inherent trait that men have, the burden of responsibility, like us
Yeah.
being a provider, having that strength, holding a family together and all this. Like that message tries to alleviate that from men to kind of like, oh, in favor of this like distorted egalitarianism, like, oh, men and women taking equal responsibility. Like she worked, instead of him working 40, 60 hours a week to sustain everything, like they both work like 30 hours a week, and and they raise a kid that's like being raised by a babysitter and all this stuff. And sometimes when they're in public, if something happens, she'll defend him, and sometimes he'll defend her. It's like, oh, everything's equal. And it's like, no. Instead of like relieving men of this idea of the burden of performance and just being a man, I think men need to embrace it.
I agree.
Like, it's weird that like it sounds, if you want to say in a purely, from this egalitarian sort of rational stance, like, oh yeah, just like taking on everything makes no sense. But that's like how we've been bred, is to take charge and to lead in
Correct.
whatever small or big way we can. Like whether it's we lead our family, we lead, we take charge in certain situations, or, of course, on a larger scale, you have men that sort of rise, they take that leadership trait to leading companies,
society, company, country.
Right. And we're literally like, was thousands of generations before us of men that did that.
Correct.
And now egalitarianism just comes out of nowhere and we just throw that all away. We can't.
I agree.
That's what like, it's such a hard thing for people, is we have more of us that are driven by our instincts that were in our genes than we have this new idea. And maybe oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with that last bit, where because we've lost discipline and because we've lost responsibility, and I mean, for the most part, we've lost a lot of suffering, really. I mean, we in the West, yeah, we go through hardship, we lose family, friends, we get sick, but we don't really know suffering like the third world, where they're fighting for food and, they all shit in a pile in the village kind of thing, right? So for the most part, we've lost the struggle, and that for a lot of time has defined masculinity, because we were the ones who would stand in the gap between the family and the chaos that was out there. We don't have that anymore. But at the same time, because we've lacked discipline and these other things, and men are not empowered in their sense of self, they've let their emotions run wild. They've given into hedonism and pleasure because they think that's all there is. And I mean, this is adding to the social decay, that we figure the only thing that matters is, avoiding pain and just having pleasure. When we never look upon the potential of masculinity, the strength, the courage, the ability to take responsibility and these other things, we never look upon those things as virtues that men should pursue. In fact, it's now discouraged, because if you're working hard in the corporate place, you're taking some woman's place, and you're part of the patriarchy, right? So, but those are the foundations that we've lost. That's really what we need to get back to, is empowering men, ironically, to be men and take responsibility for themselves, family, whatever the case might be.
So we shouldn't be empowering women to be men?
No, we definitely shouldn't be empowering women to be men. We should empower women to be women.
Yeah, because we're actually empowering women to be men, not in just the social sense, but also in some cases the physical sense too.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Because let's face it, there are only two genders, right? And women view it as competition. So they think in order to succeed in life, like men have succeeded in life, they have to be more like men. So they're teaching women to be like men.
Yeah, the ever-growing amplification, I guess, of the anecdotes. We have all these anecdotal cases of, and it's not to like try to say, I'll just go back to like how things, so, the 80-20 rule we talk about.
Yeah.
80. So just, and this, I tried saying this to, let's just say, one of our friends who does marketing, um, and he likes to kind of like speak on a lot of these ideals and like cooperation, and tries to not say he's like advocating for socialism, but totally is. And he starts saying, I think someone commented on something. He said like, well, yeah, 80% of the population is just stupid.
Possibly. I don't know. I don't know enough about them.
By the 80-20 rule, like 80% of the population is not necessarily like, stupid, but I mean, they
uninformed.
They don't really make the difference in terms of like, they're not the real world changers. They're the ones that are working at the typical jobs, the menial jobs, the minimum wage jobs. These are the people that are just going day to day, earning a paycheck, paying taxes, not really thinking much beyond, they might, a lot of them vote, but not all of them. And some of them aren't really self-aware. They're not really thinking. I know, if you remember, we had a Killian Hobbs on, he talked about, there was the whole thing with like the inner dialogue people have. Mm-hmm. 80% of the population doesn't have an inner dialogue. So people aren't really self-aware. So you have all these people out there. So basically, he said this, 80%, someone commented on his post, 80% of the population is stupid. And he got all offended, like, well, what kind of, it's like, well, no, that's just like the truth. Like, this is the thing. This is the problem with the narrative now, is we're trying to really push for, just because some women can be CEOs doesn't mean all women should be CEOs.
Correct.
Just because, and even when I talk about some like issues with red pill or, what would be considered like MRA type of things, 70% of cases in divorces are where the woman is given, sole custody, or she wins child support, alimony, all this stuff. Just because you're someone that's in that 30% doesn't mean you deny the other 70% of like not happening.
Sure, I agree.
Men get screwed in divorces as a general thing. And this, I always have to like say this to people when I'm talking about anything as a general rule, because it's always, because when the people I talk to, unfortunately, are in that minority most of the time.
Right.
There's someone that's like, hey, I got screwed over. Like, it's a woman. I got screwed over by my ex-husband. Yeah. And you're an anecdotal case that doesn't happen most of the time. It
doesn't change the rule, the general rule.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like, or someone that's like, when I talk about like marrying single moms, marrying someone older, marrying a woman older than you and stuff. And this guy was like, so you're saying like, I fit this definition of like being a cuck. I'm like, well, I said, I can't like, that's different. The difference between how I perceive what is going on in relationships and sexual, intersexual dynamics versus how I see you as a person.
Sure.
I'm not going to call you that.
Right.
But
are they a cock though?
But in the
maybe
grand
you wouldn't call
scheme,
it to their face.
But in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't do that. It's right. Like, I wouldn't marry a single mom. I wouldn't marry someone older than me. Like, sure. People try to ask me about like, well, there was this ex-girlfriend I had. I'm like, it's better to move on to something better. Well, they said, well, and then someone tried, well, isn't love, this is a guy, isn't love like worth fighting for? And I'm like, these are two different things. You have your ideal of like love to fight for and fighting for that person that you love and trying to make things work. Yeah, that works like what? 1 in a million? Like, that happens in stories, that happens in books, that happens in movies. That doesn't really happen in reality.
I mean, it does, just not very often.
That's why, yeah. So it's like, do you want like what actually happens in reality most of the time, or do you want what could happen? Like, you could maybe be the one that does make something happen, but now does that mean, obviously, do we always go for like the average, the trend? No.
I mean, we hope for the
always
best.
Exceptions.
Yeah, we prepare for the worst and hope for the best kind of scenario.
It's like, but so people want to like statistically, people want to talk about the ideals, like, the single mom finds a man, marries them, they live happily ever after, and he takes care of these 2 kids that aren't his, and maybe they have another kid and all this, whatever. Yeah, that happens totally.
Sure. Sure, it does.
Most of the time, it doesn't.
I mean, you've just described somebody we both know. So, but yeah, that might work out. You know, that's great. And sometimes, like I say, I think the only time a single mom will work out is if it's also a single dad. So if it's a single dad and single mom, I think that could work. Or if really, possibly if she's widowed, if the husband is dead.
Yeah, but the whole narrative is pushing for these small bits of society that are so ideal that just don't happen that much.
Right, which was the point I was going to make. I mean, as I say,
in the reverse, it could be a good thing. So, like, you know, there's the meme going around, despite, you know, so it's basically the first word quoting the statistic, despite making up a certain percentage of the population, African Americans in the U.S. account for over 50% of violent crime. That's an actual statistic. Now, when I go down the street and I see a black person, do I see a criminal? Obviously not. Correct. You know, and not to play the whole, you know, I have black friends, but yes, I do. I don't look at them as the statistic.
Sure.
I try to look at them as individuals. In the same way, you try to come across, you know, people that you associate with, whether, you know, let's say it's a woman I'm coming across. But then if that pertains to me, like, because being in a relationship with someone is different than having a black friend.
Unless your girlfriend is black.
we're not getting too specific.
No, I get
the point.
I get the point. I get the point, you know, in that sense. But I mean, yeah, this is the thing. I think to a certain extent, I totally understand what you're saying, but to a certain extent, I think that the statistics can be kind of cold. I think, like you say, when it comes down to the individual situation, like, okay, well, I'm sure you know of women who have kids, divorced, and they've ended up in relationships with these other guys who probably don't have kids. And in our parlance, we would definitely say that's a cuck, who's kind of like, that is the definition of cuck, right? To raise another man's kids.
Yeah.
Right. Fine. That's just what he is, right? And he's willing to live with that portion. Cool. More power to him. If that's what he wants to do, that's on him. That's not me. I don't think that's particularly masculine. That's not you. But hey, you do you. And this is the result of a generation of men raised by women. We're seeing the results. And it serves the female primary system, right? It feeds their desire. And I have a friend who's like that all the time. She's always like, well, if he was a real man, he wouldn't be bothered by the fact that I've got a kid. And I have to spin around and be like, bitch, you don't get to define what a real man is, right?
That's the thing, is in our, like, you know, while you and I see sort of the reality, we still look at people as people. Like, we're still treating people as individuals. Yeah. We still have somewhat of that, if you want to say, enlightened perspective to go look at someone and go, okay, you know, you do you, whatever works for you, great. But we also realize that, but what you have is not the norm.
Sure.
What you're doing is not the norm. And that applies to a whole lot of things. And how we use how we, you know, sort of use those lenses to look at things, like I said, with the whole having a black friend, like, you come across someone and you go, oh, well, I just, you know, well, he's obviously, like, you know, not, you know, I don't look at him and see statistics, but then because that's, I guess what I'm getting at is that closest, if you want to say, is different. Like, friends can come and go.
Right.
Relationships are a different level of commitment. That's what I was getting at. The difference between having a black friend and having, like, someone you're in a relationship with. When it's with a relationship, I will look under more, there's more scrutiny that I'll apply. Okay. Right. Is she a single mom? Does she have all these red flags? This and that and the other. Whereas with friends, I'm kind of like just trying to find, like, different perspectives, different people to, like, challenge me and be friends with. Like, you and I don't agree on everything. And there's a whole bunch of other friends that I have that I don't agree with on everything.
Sure, exactly.
But if I'm dating someone, it's a whole different list that I look at.
Yeah. No, I get that. But as you say, the relationship is different. Like, I get flack for that all the time. Like, I don't date smokers. That's just my list. I don't particularly. My sister died of cancer at a very young age. Not that she was a smoker. She was a vegan, which is just as bad. But you know, that's just my thing. If I see a really hot girl and I have a connection with her and I find out she smokes, dude, it's gone instantly.
Have you dated a smoker before?
No, I've never dated a smoker. I've kissed a couple smokers and that kind of turned me off from the whole experience because it was like sucking on a fucking ashtray. So
Really?
yeah. And I don't like the smell. It gets into the furniture. It's just it's not for me. Yeah. So I mean that's just my criteria.
What if she smoked a certain other kind of plant?
Right. If it was cannabis or DMT, I probably wouldn't have as much an issue of an issue of it because I don't those smells don't bother me as much. Right.
She wasn't like making it a habit or something.
Correct. If it was like a recreational sort of thing, like it's fine. Even recreational, certain drugs, I'll be like, okay, maybe. But yeah, those are just my criteria. Cigarette smoking, I don't want to deal with that because it's just not for me. Just like the single moms. Single moms, for me, definitely not. Unless I had a kid of my own, I probably wouldn't even look in that direction. No, excuse me. And yeah, we both have a list like that. Like if she's got a really big following on social media and she's not promoting a product or something like that, that's a red flag for me as well. I'll be like, maybe not, because she's the product, right? That's the thing.
Fatty with a fatty.
Fatty with a fatty, man. So there's just certain things you look out for when it comes to relationships, and so I completely agree in that respect.
Someone actually had they were a bit confused when I told them this. I actually mentioned as it stands right now, in terms of like if I had to like prioritize what types of women I'd be going for, Asian women, or specifically Chinese women, would not be very high on the list.
Really racist.
Yeah, exactly. And then they were like, wait, how could and they said that someone actually asked me this, and I'll get into this a little bit because it's an interesting thing. You might find it interesting too. Asians that don't want to date other Asians.
Right. Are you identifying as Asian?
For the conversation, yes.
All right, cool.
Having Asian heritage and not wanting to, like they said, this has been the true for myself, but also like other Asian people they've come across in the US that don't want to date other Asians.
Yeah.
They were like, why is this? Like, I think it was mainly men they were talking about, but it's like, why is this? And I said, well, I said, for me personally, while Asian women I find attractive, I don't find them to be good relationship material.
Right. How would you know? Are you basing this off immediate family?
My experience with knowing like Taiwanese women when I was in Taiwan, just coming across like people I've talked to, classmates, and all this, and also just the perception I've gotten from Asian, like I'm saying Asian, Chinese women in general, is very passive.
Right.
You either have the very passive,
right,
or like the full blown tiger mom type of thing going on, and it's just like, no, like I found the diversity within like the diversity of like personalities within like white women tends to be more ideal. Like you kind of go through different types. Whereas the Asian women, it's like there's so many stereotypes, and there's that are kind of like overrepresented.
Right.
So, I mean, granted, that could totally change as time goes by.
So, are you attracted to Black women?
Very specific types of looks, like not as a like that's even lower.
That's even lower than Asian women? Racist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Brian is asking about OkCupid and their cross-race dating. I think what was it? Asian men and Black women are the two
at the bottom of the totem pole.
Basically the least desirable by statistics.
Yes.
I saw also the thing, I retweeted this on Tinder. They did a study. Women only chose 4% of all matches, whereas men they would only swipe right on 4% of all the men.
Yeah.
Whereas men would only swipe right on like 60% of the women.
Yeah.
Showing that women are very selective.
Very picky. Very, very picky.
They even adjusted for like different types of degrees, like men with like masters versus like bachelors and stuff. That didn't really
Yeah.
change too much.
No. A lot of it is all of it is 6 foot. Everything is you got to be 6 foot, and that already is such a minority of the population. They're basically selecting out of,
I
a very
mean,
small minority, right? So
they want 6 foot or more, but do they want 7 feet or more? See,
that might be, yeah. So, well, some women do, but generally it starts at 6 feet. Like
because
the women,
once you get past 6'4", 6'5", you
it's
start
very
having
awkward.
you start having life expectancy problems too.
Yeah, I don't suspect they're looking for that extreme, but like the group that I'm in with the three other girls, which is it's a fucking dumpster fire. Um, they do like these Tinder games and shit like that, where the three of them try to match the same guy, and then they try to see like who could, shit him up or sleep with him first or whatever the fuck it is.
Wow.
And it's just a complete dumpster fire. And all of them, I believe, set their criteria at 6 foot. And I was like, okay, that's already a minority of the population. Good luck with that. Not that you find quality people on Tinder to begin with, and they're all complaining that, well, why these people just want to sleep with me? And it's like, no shit, woman. Like, what did you really expect?
Exactly.
But yeah, that is the thing. Women, and I did a video about this on my YouTube channel about the aspects of feminism, basically preaching that every woman is a goddess. They think they're so much higher in the sexual marketplace than they actually are. And they end up going for like nothing less than fucking Thor out of the Avengers. They want a Norse god who's like royalty, 6 foot, packed with, 12 abs and like a fortune behind him. Every fucking woman is trying to do that, which is why Dan Bilzerian never has like a crew less than 8 girls following him. But this is what they all want. Well, I can't say all. The majority of them are looking
80%.
Yeah, about 80% are looking for that.
Again, 80-20 rule.
Which is why the men at the very top of this echelon are living like fucking kings, because they just have their pick of the litter, right? They just, it's like, and this is what, again, I come back and I tell these women, right, especially in this dumpster fire that I'm in. They're like, oh my God, this guy just wants to sleep with me and whatever. And I said, yeah, probably. And he's probably doing that to like a few other women as well, because you haven't earned anything else. You haven't earned monogamy. You haven't earned a relationship. Like, what makes you different from the 24-year-old that he's banging as well, that has less baggage and no kids?
We've got Brian here in the chat basically saying, what else can they bring to the table beyond just sex?
Yeah, which is the point I just raised.
That is the thing. Yeah, it's like great sex is good sex, but I mean, if you have nothing beyond that, then you're just sex.
Which is exactly what all these guys realize. And this is what even I tell guys this. If you want to meet somebody, meet them in person. If you're on a dating app, the women there have issues, because if they were quality women, they'd probably be in a relationship already. And it's the same thing for the men. The men that are there are not looking for anything serious. They're looking to fuck, right? It's just straight up.
Incentives drive the market.
Correct. That's what it comes down to. So all these women that go on these apps and I'm looking for a serious relationship. Yeah, you're tired of the cock carousel. You're tired of people using you out. You've had like 10 miles of cock run through you, and now you want to settle down. But why would I choose you when you're about to, turn 40, when I got this 24-year-old who's, is ripe and doesn't have all of those issues, like
fresh out of college.
Yeah, why am I choosing to invest in you? Maybe not.
Yeah, there is a list of criteria that these men will go through. Maybe not, some maybe more consciously than others, but I mean, like, yeah, that's the thing, is like if you're like a 35-year-old guy, which is pretty ideal, you got your shit together, you've got some money in the bank, and you pretty much have the pick.
Yeah.
You go in there and you find these women, you find that 24-year-old woman that just got out of college or got her master's, and she's looking to get a job. She doesn't have, she's not expecting you to just completely just, pick up all her debt, or she still has things she wants to do. Like I try to kind of look at the balance of the two for me personally. People think I want this like woman that's just going to be, nothing but an apron, barefoot in the kitchen. pregnant with a bunch of kids. It's like,
Sounds
no.
great.
Well, that does sound appealing to a point. It's like, yeah, it's like, well, I want someone that's like, okay, so I'm living with someone who probably has a degree, who is like working. Like, you wouldn't mind like if you like married someone who also works like a full-time job or at least a part-time job, right?
Yeah, probably. Like that's another thing. I don't want a career woman, like doctors, lawyers.
Right. But you wouldn't mind if she's like, maybe if she holds some sort of manager type of position.
Yeah, administration. I dated a journalist. Those kind. I don't want a career woman. A woman that has, she's invested so many years in like her PhD, and she's like a doctor on call 24 hours a day, and saving lives all the time. No, I don't have time for that.
So you'd want her to be like, what's her name? Rick and Morty's mom, the horse surgeon.
Oh, right. No, I wouldn't. Vets, definitely not. Definitely not vets. Maybe a nurse preschool teachers. Yes, maybe. Yeah. So I have a list of things. As long as it's yeah, as long
be a
as
real surgeon.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to go down those roads. It's just because you're competing with her career.
Correct.
Right. That's never any fun.
It's one thing if she has a career. It's one thing if she's like actively going after it, though. Like if she's, and that's the thing. It's like you don't want. Yeah, I think that's kind of the bad, I guess, the bad rap that people get kind of from the red pills. Like we all just want these like submissive women, like purely just completely submissive. I mean, like 2 steps away from putting a little leash around her neck and walking her around the house.
Which I've done.
I don't want to know. No, tell me afterwards. Yeah, all the stories that we don't talk about on the show.
Yeah. No, because I think by nature women want to be not dominated, but they want to be submissive. It's kind of part of their nature.
They want to be led.
They want to be led. That's a good way to put it.
There is a leadership aspect, are there women out there that are definitely more leadership quality than some men? Yes. If you look at like Jordan Peterson's studies, like it's not like that, we're necessarily completely totally different, but we have more like the extremes are what define us.
Yeah, exactly.
Can a woman be the alpha of the house? Of course, but the percentage of finding the alpha of the house being a woman versus the alpha of the house being a man are so different.
Completely agree.
What was it? I mean, even like in physical things they've seen, I think it was like in terms of physical prowess, the number one woman in like a field of like a certain athletics is like, what is it, like usually around the middle of like the field of like men. It's like the best woman and it's like, what was it, Serena Williams, tennis player? Yeah. Like she's number one in her field.
Yes.
But she's like somewhere in the middle of all the men in their field.
Correct.
And when you really look at it, I think it was you look at the women's soccer team, the USA soccer team got beat by like a high school team.
Yeah, by a bunch of 15-year-olds, exactly.
Boys, and it's like, so yes and no. Like you have your anecdotes, they're there, but it's important that I think society is not like pushing the anecdotes so much, which is what they're doing.
Correct. I mean, it's always kind of been understood that, the lowest rung man on the sexual marketplace is still kind of above the lowest class of woman. So there's always been this kind of mutual understanding that men just had that little extra edge, whether it's strength, physically, height, whatever. But this is what feminism has fucked up, right? Because now women no longer see that kind of pair bonding taking place. They all now think that they're superior, right? And they think they're much higher in the sexual marketplace than they actually are. And it's downright delusional in a lot of ways. Like I've gone out And I have a couple of dating profiles and stuff like that, and I'm getting hit up by women in their 60s, like ridiculous kind of thing, and they think they still got it. It's like
you need to dive on that for science.
no, no, I don't have a grandma fantasy, man. It's like
it's not about fantasy; it's about science. Research.
No, I'm serious. Like out here in Essex, I've been to a couple clubs, and there are literally, some women out here in their 60s, maybe even more, coming out in mini skirts and high heels. And I mean, it's not always pretty, but
I remember
they still got it.
One of the first times I went to the club, well, it was a bar with a dance floor kind of thing, but kind of like a club. Anyways, pretty much right after, like a couple months after the red pill was kind of pretty fresh. And it was like, it was like a couple steps away from Neo, like seeing the Matrix in all code.
Yeah.
Not that I could really know what to do, but I was like seeing it all. Like I'm seeing like just, I'm like seeing just different types of people. I'm seeing different types of female behavior, the chick that I went there with, quote unquote friend, went there with, she's like hugging the bouncer, and I'm just like, red flag, like if she's like hugging and like friendly with the bouncer, that's a huge red flag. And then beyond that, I'm like looking at like different people that are like pairing off on the dance floor. I'm like, party girl, epiphany phase, way past her, her sexual peak. Like it was like some dude who's probably like a early 30s black dude with like this late 40s white woman, lady. Yeah. And it's just, and I was just like, what the heck? And I'm seeing all this. I'm like, how can I not see all this?
Yeah, exactly.
Now that's just a lens you look through. Now, am I going to sit there and probably approach those people and start making all these assumptions? No. But this is,
you didn't approach them. You made the assumptions anyway, though. But
okay. But I mean, am I going to? I guess I misspoke there. I look at that, now I have that lens, and that's what I use to kind of perceive things. I see people, I see certain behaviors, you see things that way.
Yeah.
Some lenses you apply in some case, because it's how it matters to you. Like the red pill matters to me because that's how I'm going to vet for relationships, long-term commitments, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But then, just because I know about other types of statistics, other types of realities that maybe don't affect me as much, I don't see them that way.
Right.
Some people that I've talked to in the past, people who are maybe more alt-right, or people who are even like SJWs, you have these two extremes, the extreme left, extreme right ideas, and they all have their statistics and realities they try to throw out there. Yeah. You have these wealth inequality statistics that don't take into account like economics. Mm-hmm. You have these, crazy ideas regarding crime statistics, race, and IQ from like hard right wingers, but that doesn't take into account like individualism and people breaking the norm and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, I know those things, but those don't really pertain to a lot of decisions I make on a day-to-day basis, so I don't think about those.
Sure.
But the red pill, look at it a certain way. Society kind of just blows up all this stuff. So it's like all the anecdotes, all the small slivers of society that are like idealist, scenarios all get blown up. And it's like, no one really just goes like, how about let's look at the world in a balanced perspective, taking into account all the statistics, all the information. But no one thinks that way.
Well, I mean, no, to be honest, people don't have time to be really informed. Most people are stuck on the rat race or the hamster wheel of life, and they're just trying to make it to the end of the day, trying to make it to retirement kind of thing. So, I mean, as you rightly said, the majority of the population doesn't, they're not informed. I think it was Thomas Edison was the one who said, I think 5% of people actually think, 10% of people think they think, and 85% of the people would do anything except think. Right? So
when you realize, and I try to like perceive the world of people that like just don't have that inner dialogue, and I'm like, how do you like go about your day? What are you
They just
doing?
do. They just do.
And then I realize, holy crap, people just do and don't really think, and the next thing you know, they're dead. You know,
Yeah.
they're there on the other side of their life, they're dead. They don't, and then they have that sliver of self, you know, of self-awareness just before they die, like, oh shit, there's all this stuff I didn't do, there's all this stuff I didn't think about, and then they're dead.
Correct. Correct.
And I'm like, that's and
I
see
mean,
that,
ultimately, it's pretty sad.
and that's probably one of the darker statistics, I think. You know, you want to sit there and look at, you know, what do you want to talk about, like, you know, demographic replacement, you want to talk about all this stuff, and people get all really, some people get really caught up in that. I think the darker thing is most people just don't give a shit.
Correct.
That's pretty dark.
Yeah, like they're trying to get their paycheck, feed their family, you know, whatever the case might be, go on a vacation once a year.
Not necessarily bad things.
None of that is bad things at all. But I mean, society has basically plotted out your life for you, you know, and the minute you enter, you know, the system of kindergarten or whatever you guys have, preschool or whatever it's called, there's a path for you, you know, and it results in you working behind some desk or whatever the case might be, and, you know, voting Republican or Democrat for the rest of your life and giving up half your money to the state and the taxes. And, you know, they farm you for money. That's your destiny. Whether you pick a destiny or not, there's a destiny for you. And I completely agree. In fact, one of my very close friends, you know, I talk to him all the time, and I'm like, bro, you are sleepwalking through life. Things are just kind of happening around you, and you're not really thinking things through. And, you know, I mean, I can't make him think it through, you know, but such is life.
Yeah.
Yeah, very black pill there, Amos. Very black pill. I mean, did you see George Bruno's recent video about basically his critique of the red pill? I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
I know you have a soft spot for George Bruno, so I was just gonna say. So he put out a video recently, and I don't completely disagree with what he's saying. Basically saying that, you know, he's kind of disavowed himself from the red pill. He was kind of in it for 2 years, and he realizes that, you know, your ideology will create your reality, sort of thing. And if you're constantly looking at every person that you meet based on the ideology, you're going to miss some really good connections.
True. So basically,
no. Like,
right. Yeah. Like, yeah. That's why, I mean, you and I,
what you were just talking about, like, you know, the statistics, but that doesn't take into account the individual.
Yeah, I still have there's the things that are I'm going to adjust differently. Like, you know, am I going to date a single mom? There's a really good chance I'm not going to. Could it happen?
Maybe. Of course. She might be really hot.
She might be really hot and probably have a whole lot to offer.
Maybe she does. Maybe she's the love of your life, and it's like the best thing. It could happen. You know, crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a better chance that it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, sure. But I think this is the point that he was making. And as I say, I don't disagree with him. And what he kind of said is, you know, when you come to red pill knowledge and you understand that the world is not the way you think it is, you know, you go through those stages of grief because your worldview has died. So, you know, you go through the denial, you go through the depression, the anger, the negotiation, and the acceptance. And he says a lot of people just get stuck on anger. And he says anger is a very good place to hide sadness and pain. Like, all right, a woman hurts you. Oh my God, it hurts. It's really bad. But if I have this knowledge and I understand, you know, her nature and all these other kinds of things, I could be angry at her. Thereby, I don't have to deal with my pain. It's the only emotion that's big enough to kind of swallow up sadness and pain. And again, I don't disagree with him on that. And we know that. We know a lot of men, when they come to this kind of thing, they kind of end up looking like they hate women.
Heck, I get that all the time.
Yeah. I think I said that to you kind of early on. And I know you're in some kind of community where they kind of throw that at you all the time. I don't think that's true for you, but he's making that point. If you look at this too long, you can get a jaded perspective of life,
and
basically.
yeah, people that have actually and the group that kind of throw it at me, like the people who've actually talked to me will actually kind of see. Some of them have actually come to like see red pill as like something they like to a point, and they kind of see like, yeah, like I look at things and I look at statistics, but there's still people that I know that are like obviously taking all the courses of action that a purely red pill person probably wouldn't take.
Yes.
Now, does that like make me treat them any differently? No. You know, if they ask me my perspective on it, yeah, I'm going to give them my perspective, but I'm going to like keep prefacing it with like, yeah, but it doesn't always apply. There's always exceptions. And that's the thing I think people don't really get. Like, I look at trends, I look at statistics, but there's always exceptions.
I agree. And I think that is
A lot of things we do are all exceptions. Like people don't really realize we actually make a lot of like if you want to say, you know, based upon a lot of rules people tend to claim they believe, they still make a shit ton of exceptions. Like we sit here and we really like this, ANCAP idea, sort of no government, pure capitalism. But we make a shit ton of exceptions on a daily basis that like completely go against that. We still willing. I mean, for the most part, I'm still getting a paycheck where money is just taken out. Am I
sure.
going to pick up a gun and start, protesting about this? No. You know,
Is protests like hidden language for something else?
I should pick up a gun and protest. But you have, am I, do I want like, or some people don't believe in voting. Am I still going to vote in 2020? Probably, yeah.
Probably, yeah. I mean, this is the exceptions and the individualities. I think what's missing in the red pill. And I told you about that interview that Rollo did with the pickup artist when the guy said, he still wanted to get married, like actually get married, ceremony and all that kind of stuff. Already divorced. Rollo had no answer for him. Rollo's like, you actually, haven't you been listening to everything I've been saying? And the fact is, yeah, of course, he's listened to everything he's been saying. And yes, he has a ton of experience under his belt and all this kind of stuff. But he still wants to get married.
Rollo's married.
Yeah, and this is the irony, right? Rollo is married. And I think a couple other people, I think Ryan is married as well, isn't he?
Ryan Stone is married for
Ryan
10 years at
Stone.
least.
Yeah.
Who else is married?
I can't remember.
And then, I mean, and there's a couple of these other guys that I come across who maybe have some sort of like an LTR or something.
Yeah. They have that as well.
Or they just, or maybe they are like dating someone seriously. They just won't like put it out there.
Quite possibly. And this is the exception. And I think nobody ever came up with an answer for this, which is why I've always kind of held out that, yes, the red pill is phenomenal, but it's not the be all end all. My dad had Parkinson's, right? And he died from it. He died from it a couple of years ago. And his wife, his second wife, not my mother, but my stepmother, she loved him. And she was there for him to the very end. And I mean, not just being there. She took care of him. You know what I'm talking about. She just did everything for him. And she was devastated when my dad finally died. And I will admit,
my mom.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if you want to get into all that whole thing, but that goes against some of the pivotal aspects to female nature about hypergamy and monkey branching and all of these different types of things. And as yet, nobody, I mean, they acknowledge that, yes, that does happen. It's an exception. Probably. I think those women that do that are exceptional. And I think that's what the red pill is missing. Yes, it's exactly what you were saying. You have the statistics, but you don't necessarily apply that to the individual. You have to kind of wait and see what the relationship will be like.
And you're probably going to make some like exceptions to the rules as you go along the way. Like,
of course,
she grew up with a single mom.
Yeah.
Is that necessarily something you want to be a part of? Or is she our friend Richard Cooper kind of throws out debt and stuff, and it's like, yeah, but what if I get involved with her and she just tell like straight from the get go just doesn't want me to touch the debt she has,
Well,
or
yeah, that's a conversation you have early.
or if I have the vetting, part of the vetting trick of like a prenup, and she says, yeah, I wouldn't want you to take over my debt. Like just straight up from the get go says that. That would like tell me, oh, then there's that exception. Then like she would actually not want me to not expect me to just like pick up the tab for her and take care of her, in this sort of no strings attached manner, kind of thing.
Exactly. Red flags do not necessarily mean it's not going to work, right? So, like in the red pill community, they talk about tattoos, for instance. Tattoos are red flags. She's got the tramp stamp, this kind of thing. The bigger the hoops of the earring, the bigger the hoe, that kind of stuff. But those aren't insurmountable because, as you say, some people were young once and they made stupid choices. The question becomes, are they working on it? So there's red flags, crimson flags, and black flags. Black flags are just straight up, these women are toxic, right? These women are fucking radioactive. Stay away from them.
She's got those like freaking plexiglass little things in her, whatever, the see-through.
Yeah.
These are piercing.
Exactly. But the red flags that we talk about in terms of like my ex-girlfriend, for instance, she had, let's just say she had an issue that required attention. And I'll be honest about that. That if she had actually taken the time to address the issue full on, even if she didn't necessarily solve the problem, I probably would have stayed with her. But the fact is that she had this issue in her life. She knew it was an issue for me, and she didn't want to deal with it. And after a year and a half and stuff like that, it was kind of escalating, and it was becoming more and more obvious that the situation wasn't great. I knew I wasn't gonna marry her at that point. And that's kind of why I said, look, I'm not going to waste your time. You don't waste my time. We kind of ended it. But if in that space of time, she cared about me and she loved me as much as she said she did, and she really like, I need to solve this for him, and hit it. Even if she didn't solve it, I would have given her props. Even though it's a red flag, I would have given her props because it's how she was dealing with her issues. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing for me, is that positive attitude. Shit's going to happen in life. It's how you react to it. And especially if you've got, maybe somebody has an addiction, maybe they've got some bad habit that you don't like, whatever, at least be dealing with it. And I think that's the key.
Like one thing I've thought about a little more in depth is, guys have different preferences when it comes to, like, let's just say the size of a woman, whether she's like a bigger woman, skinnier woman, or you want to say meat on her bones, thick. You have all these different distinctions, and I've always thought about it like, I've come to kind of see like, okay, if I dated someone and they were like, we'll just say the person that I went to go see in Texas,
yes,
a little bit on the thicker side and whatnot.
I was not a redhead.
It was
wasn't redhead, right? Okay.
So there's this person, and by a lot, maybe by my standards that I've basically kind of had drilled in my head as growing up as being like Asian and stuff, like, oh, women have to be like super skinny kind of thing or whatever. And it's like, I kind of saw it as like, well, I mean, if someone is just if they're like making an effort to like work out, be in shape, eat healthy, and they're not just like literally they're not playing the body positivity card and stuff, then that's fine. But then if they're just like full, they're full blown, like, well, you need, I'm a little thick and you need to love me as I am because I'm body positive. I'm like, no. Like, if that's kind of put out there from the get go, I'm just kind of like, no, I don't want any part of that then. But then if it's like someone who's like, looks like a, we'll just say a work in progress, and then I like date them for a bit and they're kind of like, yeah, I kind of nudge the topic like, you ever want to like, work out more, maybe start looking a little better, like just to kind of see where they go with that. And if they kind of like, yeah, then I'd be like, okay, maybe this is worth pursuing a bit more. But if they're just like, what are you, body shaming me? And I'll be like, yeah, so we're not going to go out anymore.
Yeah, I had a girl in let's just say another part of the UK. Young girl, she was like 22 or something like that. I found her on one of these websites, and we managed to get on some kind of chat, and she was obese, like, seriously obese and stuff like that. And, she had a lot of issues. I think she, she was, some stuff had happened to her and everything like that. And, I was kind of straight up like, look, you live on a different side of the country. It's very unlikely we're going to see each other. And to be honest, I'm not feeling any kind of attraction and this, that, and the other. And she was like, oh, I want a boyfriend. I've never had a boyfriend. You have to be my boyfriend and this, that, and the other. And I was like, I don't have to be anything, right? Like, you are not entitled to a boyfriend, right? For whatever reason you might think. And I tried to explain to her, is like, look, if you're looking for a quality man, you have to, you're not entitled to it just because you're a woman. You need to show yourself worthy, for his attention and these other things. And she snapped at me. Is like, don't call me a woman. I'm like non-binary, cis, whatever fucking.
Oh, no, we're definitely not going out.
Whatever fucking alphabet soup that she pissed out. And I was like, okay, block. But I mean, she sold herself out, and I mean, I kind of feel for the things that happened to her. Okay, is really terrible, but it's still not an excuse, right? Because I know people who've had those things happen to them and they've overcome it. Like they, let's just say molestation. If a girl has been molested, the worst possible thing that could happen. Yeah, I know a couple girls that have had that happen, and I've seen girls destroy their life for it, and then I've seen girls who've overcome it. And that's why the attitude is so important, in terms of an LTR, even for marriage. You got to have at least a positive attitude. I mean, nobody's positive all the time. Fine. You have your down days. Sure, of course, I get that. But as a general rule, you got to be working on your stuff. And that's what I'm talking to this girl right now. And I'm talking to her and I'm telling her, you build your life, I build my life. And if we come alongside each other and we're building in the same direction, that's how we know something could work. But I'm not
That's a good way of putting it.
I'm not forcing my life, and you're not forcing your life to try and cross paths. That's kind of how I was trying to explain it to her. She didn't appreciate that very much. She expected me to pick everything up and just like, move to Siberia. It's like, but yeah, that's what's going on, man.
Yeah. And that's where the exceptions to like red pill ideology kind of comes in, and people don't really see that. Like, I mean, you have like this red pill and religion group that we're in, and it's, there are guys in there that are like they're red pilled, but then they're iffy on like some certain things because of certain religious ideology. Like, I could see that,
Sure.
but at the same time, it's like there's certain parts where I'm like, okay, so you're making rules for other rules. That's the thing too. Yeah. Everyone either breaks certain rules, makes other rules, or they kind of make exception to rules just because of people. People are just that way, and no one really sees that. Like, we want extremes, we want like ideals, we want things that either don't happen at all, don't happen a lot of time, or just almost never happen to happen, or to just label someone with that. I have, I could say like I have concerns about certain things, and I'm a right winger, I'm a Nazi, or I'm a left winger, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
You're, or you're a misogynist, or you're this, you're that. You're, all these things, and it's like no one just goes, hey, you have a balanced perspective on things, or you have, or even just not even balance. Like, I don't believe in balanced perspectives. People just have their convictions that they either stick with or don't stick with. They have a logical like line of reasoning to go and say, oh, I believe this because of this.
Sure. Yeah. It's a missing thing where, well, as I said, most people don't think. Most people, whatever the headline that the mainstream media is screeching at them, they tend to believe.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that people are getting tripped up by, all of these things. Let's just be honest, most people are just drifting through life,
Yeah. Someone actually, so this, I'll tell you about this conversation. I had the meta conversation back a couple months ago with what we call not a university student. Had this meta conversation about like like having kids and raising children, like parenting strategies.
Yes.
And I started talking about like, we talked about the whole thing with like children and genders and stuff like that, like, raising a child as a boy, as a girl, and so on. And she's a childcare provider, so she like sees all sorts of things, like, because she's seen extremes, and I'm kind of like explaining like what I want, like, okay, if I have a, you know so I started talking about like, children tend to just follow gender roles just innately, like without this whole social conditioning theory. Like, you know, a, a baby boy is born, and the first moment he can pick something up and play with it, he's playing with trucks. A little girl's playing with like dolls and stuff. She was like, "Oh yeah, I see that all the time," because she worked with like 6 month to like 2.5 year olds, so she sees that. Okay, cool. So she gets that. And then she said, "Well, what about like if you raise your own kid, how would you go about it?" I said, "Well, if I have a boy, I'm going to give him like these toys." And she's like, "Well, what if he plays with dolls?" I said, "Well, here's the difference though. Is he playing with dolls because they're dolls, or is he playing with dolls because they're like action figures? Like, I'll give him a GI Joe or an Iron Man and see if he plays with that.
Sure.
Then it'd be different, you know." Whereas if he's like straight up playing with like Barbie and Ken, then it's like, okay, if he still wants to play with Barbie and Ken, am I going to stop him? Probably not. I might look a little closer and kind of go, okay, this is something to keep an eye out for.
I mean, I played with Bobby just to take her clothes off.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We won't get into what you were doing with those toys.
Well, I have two sisters, so anyway, it's a whole other story.
But you have these things, and it's like, so that was like, and she kind of like, as I kind of walked through like my thinking, it was like, oh, this makes more sense. Like, I'm not just some like, because she said, well, I have this like one family, like they have a little boy, and they insist on me giving him like, not giving him like a pink bib when we're like feeding the kids.
Right.
She's like, because they don't want their kids to have any exposure to like anything feminine. Like, it's got to be a blue bib, no dolls, all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, they have to do their best to like fulfill these requests, but it's like, that was a little extreme. Like, you got to give him a toy gun and nothing else. And it's like, let kids explore, but also like,
let kids be kids.
Let kids be kids. But don't try to dictate like what, because I think that whole like forcing masculinity down a baby's throat.
Yeah, not a kid, not a baby. Like if I have a son, I will have a conversation with him when he's like 12 or
because the whole like, I guess what they call like sort of, if you want to say like gender dysphoria types of behaviors, go away after puberty.
Exactly. So like, I wouldn't be too concerned with what my
I mean, heck, doing. Like I remember when I was real little, my mom and I'll just throw this out there, had fun with this one, internet. My mom, because I was just interested and intrigued. I actually remember this, but it never stuck. My mom, because she did her fingernails a lot. So I was interested. Oh, I want to do this. So I did that. But then I never went to school or anything like, oh, fingernails. Like, I had all these different colors, and I had a bad habit of chewing my nails, so I actually chewed off all the coloring anyways. Was that like a, this is all way before puberty. Was this like, oh no, like Amos is gonna has gender dysphoria? No, it's like I went through puberty and I grew up and didn't do that anymore.
I mean, I painted my nails my black, right? I put black nail polish on just because I thought I was cool. And I had like long hair back when I had hair. I'm kind of losing it now. But I mean, yeah, but that's again post puberty, and I just thought I was a badass. So yeah, I agree with you in the sense like the whole gender dysphoria thing is blown out of proportion, especially with kids. Let kids be kids. They'll figure it out. They have to figure it out. That's kind of the point.
What's going to happen to Desmond when he comes through puberty?
Oh, that's the little kid, right? That's like
the little drag queen. Yeah, the little drag queen kid. Like Jesus Christ, that puberty's going to hit.
He might turn into Elton John.
Oh yeah, more music.
Some pretty good music, must say.
whatever you're gonna do for what is it? This comedian said. He says you want to discipline your kids, but not too much. But you want to discipline them just enough, beat them to greatness. I was like, oh, geez. He goes, but not too much because you don't want them to get too dark. You want just enough darkness that they explore that talent.
Yeah. It's an interesting take.
But
Yeah,
anyways, interesting turn of topics, isn't it?
yeah. We had no idea what we were going to talk about, and we filled an hour and 35 minutes. So
We're doing good. We're doing good. Anything you wanted to add quick before we wrap it up?
no. I think that was a good show. Looking forward to Sunday. That should be also a good show. And yeah, look out for Robert Frank. We wish him to get better. He's under the weather right now, so yeah. That's kind of where we're at.
How many steel supplements does he have to take to get over that?
Speaking of steel supplements, actually, I just got a shipment of steel supplements.
Oh boy, what'd you get?
I got the ADA load, which is the pre-workout, and I got the 3 Epi Andro, which is kind of like a shredded fat burner muscle builder. And they came with a couple samples of Hard AF and Focus AF. So yeah.
Oh yeah, they're doing samples and stuff. How does what does a fat burner even do?
Well, the real fat burner is shredded AF or shredded as fuck. I didn't particularly want that one because that's a lot of caffeine and stuff like that. Because I really want to try and maintain mass, so I wanted the two together. But the few people who have taken the shredded, apparently it's worked really well. So, but you got to be exercising. You got to be in the gym. You can't just sit on your ass kind of thing. You got to do the
so
work.
because you're in ketosis plus you're taking that. What is that going to do?
Yeah, I'm the weight loss is kind of stalled a little bit, so I'm trying to push it over the edge. I'm still losing weight, but I'm gonna try this for the month and see if I get a little more gains as well as lose some more of the body fat.
So how long before you start looking at like Robert Frank?
Like Robert? No, nobody will look like Robert Frank. He's one of a kind.
or at least that level of definition.
I don't know. I'm hoping. I'm hopeful. It's probably going to take more than a month though, but we'll see. And I have a trip to Wales and Northern Ireland coming up, so that's going to be a week off from the gym and other things. So it's a little complicated, but I'll keep you posted, man. I'll keep you posted. Keep watching my Instagram, guys. You'll be able to follow along.
Yes, they're taking those in the mirror selfies after a workout.
I got to start.
Yeah. But all right, guys. Well, thanks everyone for joining us in the podcast today. Definitely check out our other shows in the past. Do obviously subscribe, click the bell notification to keep up with everything so you'll know that we'll be coming on. And of course, follow Brook and myself on social media. Brook actually changed his name to @Brook_Potter there. I'm at Amos Joe, Joe, so not full Amos Joseph, although you can find me that way on Twitter as well. Subscribe to the channel, of course. Check out Brook's videos, check out our other shows, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play. I think we're in a bunch of other apps. I know Podbean, they have their own app, but they also show like all the other platforms that we're on. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you guys on Sunday.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
And